Hello. You know, every time I think of her, I a certain cloud comes over me because I can't get past the fact that it didn't have to end that way. No, I can't get past the fact that I believe had she had the courage and the strength to make changes for herself, she wouldn't have been a memory as she is now. Hi, I'm June Senon, and I want to talk to you about one of my best friends. Her name was Fran. See, Fran was a typical woman, worked hard, get up, did the career thing, had a job, and, really tried her best. But Fran was not typical in that Fran had a lot of friends. Fran had a lot of peer. She had a lot of communities that she belonged to. She was very active because her worth was tied in to how people view her. And even though that worked for her all her life, it turned out in the end to be one of the factors that contributed to her passing. See, Fran, for the past few years, 30 years, Fran was a happily married woman with one son. At least she carried on as if she was a happily married woman. But she was far from that. Fran lived in what I consider the epitome of dysfunction. From the very get-go of her relationship, her husband, in his words, in his deeds, in his action, showed that Fran was just a convenience. That's all she was to him. And who would have known this? Just the people that she felt close to, that she could confide in. Because as I said, Fran lived her whole life in that marriage as this happy-go-lucky person. But if you knew what was going on the inside, you would know she was one of the saddest character, because she couldn't really share what the real deal was, right? So, as I said, eventually, to just exist, Fran ended up living two separate lives in the same house. You know how that goes, right? Some of us end up living in the same house for years, and he does his thing and she does her thing. And the only correspondence really is if they pass each other in the bathroom, or she has to ask for the money to pay the mortgage, or, some important thing with the kid, that sort of thing. We live completely separate lives. So that was Fran's reality. But Fran also suffered from embarrassment. Again, when you find yourself where you have no control over your own life, for some reason you tend to take on this kind of responsibility of shielding the perception, shielding it from your partners, shielding it from your friends, most of all, shielding it from your family, who you would think would judge you. So she just kept trying to give this illusion that she had this perfect marriage. And it was obvious, it was everything but. So within the first couple of weeks of COVID, I'm told, I wasn't there, but I'm told her husband caught COVID. And Fran was at home with him because she was working from home at the time, taking care of him. And within 3 weeks, he was okay. He actually went back to work. But by the time he started to feel better, she came down with the COVID. And she basically was left alone. Now, you're asking me, June, what are you talking about? Yeah, she was basically left alone because he said he didn't want to catch that thing again. So he disappeared. But Fran also had a son, an adult son. What does son do? Turns out, son is just like father. He doesn't want to catch that thing either. So he disappears. And Fran is left alone. And Fran has had people who would be calling her every 5 minutes to see she was okay. Because, as I said, Fran had a wide community of friends and family, that was very close to her. At least we felt very close to her. And Fran wouldn't respond. So it was like, what's going on? What's going on? Eventually, after a few days, Fran confided in her sisters that she has COVID, she's very sick, but she's waiting on her husband and her son, who she continued to call over and over and over to come take her to the hospital. But that was the story of Fran's life. Fran had a relationship that was built on convenience. So Fran stayed in this dysfunctional soup, hoping to be noticed, hoping to be loved, hoping to hear thank you, hoping to hear I care. Fran never got any of that. It was one criticism to the next, one heavy lifting to the next. And what ended up happening was, in order for Fran to prove once again that she's deserving of the two men in her life, she sat there waiting and waiting and looking at the clock and making more phone calls and begging them to come home. But I bring this story to you not because I want to explain to you what happened to Fran. I bring this story to you to highlight that thing that we do, that thing that we do when we don't get what we want from a relationship. So instead of hitting the exit button or taking the elevator down and out, we stay put and we demand more. Prove to me more that you care, even though that they've never proven that they care. But we stay put. We say dug in, as they say, hoping to get that little affection that we know we deserve, we think we deserve, we work hard for it. We're constantly on a treadmill, doing more, doing a lot more, letting them off the hook, making excuses as to why we continue to do that. But that, my friends, that, my sisters, is really the foundation of the dysfunction. If you're in a relationship that you get nothing back, not even a thank you, you get nothing back, but you stay put. And you come up with all kinds of justifications as to why you're still there. Even though you're complaining, even though you reek with sadness, even though you've lost your glow, you've lost your smile, you just sad, you just unfulfilled. As a woman, you don't even have that sexual energy anymore. If a guy looks at you, is like, what, is he crazy? What is he seeing? You have shut down emotionally as a woman because you're waiting. You're waiting on something to happen. You're waiting on him to notice. This is not just a Fran story, though. This is a June story. This is a Susan story. This is a Selma story. This is a Karen story. Yes? You know, I can't go through all the names, but you know what I'm talking about. You recognize what I'm talking about. Why are you still there? Why are you still there? Why are you waiting on him to change? Why are you waiting on him to fix himself? Don't you think it's time you start focusing on what you can do to fix yourself? Whatever that is. You have to start doing some kind of inventory, right? As to why you're there. So what did Fran do? She waited for her son to come home. No matter who called and said, I'll take you to the hospital. You know, no, I can't go because my son is going to show up. Waited on husband. No, I'm waiting on him to come home to take me to the hospital. So what do you think happened to Fran? After 8 days of waiting, Fran finally ended up in the hospital. And within hours, Fran was brain dead. Fran is now a memory because Fran waited. And Fran spent her whole life waiting for approval from two people that every opportunity they got said that they didn't care. They didn't care. I'm bringing this to you as a hard lesson so that you too can wake up from your sleeping slumber and recognize where you are. You've spent years quarreling, debating, negotiating, compromising, giving up your dreams, giving up your money, giving up your talent to make this relationship you call your own work. But at no point did you stand back and say, what do I need to do to change the dynamic of what I have sitting in here? What do I need to do? What do I need to do? Don't keep ignoring what you're really into. Some of us wait until we're beaten and battered. Some of us wait until we're killed. Yeah, it could get very extreme, right? Thank God I didn't get a beating every Monday. But my mother did when she was in a dysfunctional relationship the first few years of her life. I don't know. You have to take a full inventory of where you are, but more importantly, where you want to go. See, in order for you to get out of where you want to go or get out of where you are, you have to get out from where you are. That's the lesson. You have to wake up. You have to get out. You have to make the decisions. You have to put things in place that will move you forward. Maybe it's not a one and done kind of situation, because most of us, we're tied in. We're tied in very closely into relationship, whether the property and the kids and the investments and the bank account and all the things that we tie in. So it takes a little unraveling, but the unraveling don't start until you come to terms with where you are. And that's what I want you to work on. Come to terms with where you are. Did you ever hear the story about how a cow and a buffalo deal with incoming storms? I heard that recently. I might have shared that before. And it basically goes like this. A cow, like all animals, kind of know when the storm is coming. But what does a cow do? He starts running away from the storm. And he runs, and he runs, and he runs some more. Until finally, he's so exhausted, the storm finally catches up with him. But because he spends so much energy running away, not facing the storm, he has nothing left. Nothing left to fight with. But what does a buffalo do? A buffalo has the exact opposite instinct. From the time he recognizes the weather is changing, he turns towards the storm and he charges in and he goes head first into that storm. Who do you think has a better chance of survival? Well, I'll tell you, I did that. I was a cow. And the way I handled my dysfunction is not in dealing with it. I handled it by running the other way. Running and avoiding and making excuses and saying, well, maybe what I see isn't really what that really looked like. Oh, was I terrific at coming up with justifications why I was still in it. After the first year, the second year, the 15th year, the 18th year, I was still in it because I was a cow. So what are you? At the end of 20 years, though, did anything get better? No, it got worse because he recognized that I'm a pushover, just like Fran's husband recognized that she was a pushover. She could handle her business. I think that's exact words that he told her when she called, when she finally got him on the phone to come and take her to the hospital. Handle your business. But you can't be mad. You can't be mad with them. You have to take some introspection and some responsibility for where you are and determine what you need to do to get the hell out. I know, well, I know this is hard, but I hope it triggers just a little bit of daylight in your head so that you can begin the transformation by asking the question, how long? How much longer? Is this worth it? What is your life going to look like if nothing changes? Are you satisfied with that? And if not, what do you need to do to get from there to where you want to go? I thank you. I thank you for participating in this level of uncertainty, because I know it's not easy. I know change is not easy, but self-inflicted, self-directed change is even more difficult. It's even more difficult. But that's what I want from you. That's what you need to do in order to see the change, in order to get the life that you deserve. Thank you.